What's going on, guys? Welcome to Midday Due Diligence, part of Pick Six Sports. I appreciate you guys hopping in with this. Of course, as you file in, you got to remember, and it is important to remember, to like and subscribe. That's right. Get on board, grow with us. We've been having a great time. It's a lot of fun, very interactive with you guys. And so we do shows all throughout the week, starting here on Tuesday with your Midday Due Diligence with me and Camber. And then, of course, Camber is back with Massey as the week goes on Thursdays. And then, of course, you got Freestyle Fridays, one of the best shows out there. So you don't want to miss that. So be sure that you like and subscribe to Pick Six Sports, of course, just a growing community of people who just love the Dallas Cowboys, right? So speaking
most days,
or love the idea of the Dallas Cowboys, absolutely. But of course, Cowboys, they pick up another win over Washington this time, and it was 25-10. And this game, I think a lot of people kind of had a trap game feel to it. I kind of noticed that getting thrown around a little bit. But no game is a trap game when Carson Wentz is at quarterback.
Right. Yeah.
It has been ownership. He may not be a part of the franchise, but he is owned by the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, we've got the Rams coming up, but we're going to talk about a few of these things that took place on Sunday at noon. First noon game for the Dallas Cowboys this year as well. So that is really just a toss-in. Doesn't mean anything. But first and foremost, Camber, I think that something that we should do, he's a guy that I've questioned nonstop ever since he was even hired. I mean, before he even coached a single game, I was like, what are we doing here? But it's time to show Mike McCarthy a little bit more respect. And I know that'll start with me. I'll show him some love. I thought he made some really good in-game decisions in this game against the Commanders. And so it's just that time that we put a little respect in Mike McCarthy's name this week.
It definitely is. And I'm going to be right there from the beginning. I hated the hire. I didn't want him as our coach. I didn't believe his little setup playing house. He lied to us immediately right away, saying that he watched every single play, and then he didn't. So I guess, you do whatever you got to get the job. I do believe that the Tampa Bay game was a wake up for him, and that he thought that he may not make it through this season as our head coach. And you can see a difference in our play calling, and I have to believe that he has stepped in and become more of a part of it.
Yeah, quite possibly so. And the one thing that he has done well, with the exception of maybe one or two situations, is he has really managed the health of this team exceptionally well. And I think we're seeing that again this year. Of course, you kind of wait and you see, hey, is so-and-so going to be in there this week? And a lot of times, maybe under the Jason Garrett regime, that player would have played. It's kind of like, if you can go, you're going to go. But Mike McCarthy's entire mentality towards this is, oh, you could go this week, but you couldn't go fully this week. Then you're going to go next week when you can go fully. And that has been greatly appreciated. They mentioned that again with how they're going to handle Dak Prescott and that injury. We're not going to play him until he can have a full week of practice. And so that might mean he misses an extra game. And who knows, that extra game may be the Rams. That extra game may be the Lions. We'll just have to kind of wait and see exactly as this continues to unfold. But we saw it with Michael Gallup. The chatter leading up to the week before against the Giants was that Michael Gallup was finally going to make his debut and be on a pitch count, 15 snaps or so. And then in the final 24 hours, we heard, no, he's not going to play. And now you got an actual damn near full workload from Michael Gallup the week after. Has a few catches a touchdown pass. And so, just that particular part of the game for the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy's been exceptional at.
He absolutely has. He absolutely has. And my understanding this week with Dak is that they want him to have a full week of practice. And of course, yesterday was the day off. They're going to be looking at the way that he can throw and everything. He was sore from throwing last week. But I do think, and we saw it last year, that they didn't rush Tank back. Osa didn't get rushed back, that they really are taking time with these guys coming back and not rushing, these injuries in that way. And honestly, and with Dak, I don't have a problem. After seeing the game last night, we might be okay with Cooper Rush going up against these Rams. Uh, it's they don't scare me half as much as they did before, and I wouldn't. I don't think it's a problem if we roll with Cooper Rush this week and then have Dak come back for the Eagles next week.
Wins buy you time.
Right,
Wins by
exactly.
time. And, to your point, you look at the Rams last night, and boy, it was not pretty. And of course, we're going to get into that game a little bit more. They're missing some pieces up front. Otherwise, they're a pretty healthy team, with the exception of, they lost Odell Beckham last year, and then Robert Woods is kind of always nicked up here and there. But they've in large part stayed healthy, other than their offensive line, which is a pretty bad place to not be healthy. But the other thing that I like that Mike McCarthy did, that I noticed some people took exception to, was the decision to kick the field goal on 4th and 5. And I don't remember exactly where they were on the field, maybe like the 9-yard line or something of the sort. It was a chip shot for Maher, especially considering the way that he's kicked early on in this season. But a lot of people were, the analytics, being more aggressive, going for it on 4th down. We wanted to see that type of thing. And so there were people calling for him to, hey, go for it on 4th down. Let's get the 7, not the 3. Let's make it a 3-possession game instead of a 2-possession game. But the thinking there is that you have an opponent who your defense has been eating up all game long. They haven't been able to do much of anything at all. So instead of risking turning the ball over in a 12-point game, which you would need just 2 scores and they would have a lead.
Right. I think that was with 6:14 left.
Yeah, there was a little bit of time.
Yeah.
With the pace of the game, it would have been tough for them to complete a drive, get the ball back, and complete another drive. And that's the point, is you force them to do as much as humanly possible. Touchdown, get the ball back, touchdown again, 2-point conversion. And they hadn't shown that they were going to be capable of doing that at all in this game. Mike McCarthy knew that. He elected to kick the field goal, and I think that was the right decision.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. His game management has been spot on, where last year he couldn't find the clock when he was in LA. So I really believe, this is a different Mike McCarthy we're experiencing this year than what we saw last year in many situations.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, like you mentioned, back is up against the wall a little bit. This may be your final rodeo, kind of no matter what. If you win it all, then by golly, might be able to come back or ride off into the sunset. It'll be your choice. But I really, really think that Mike McCarthy was pushed into working a little bit harder. I know. I think the first time in his entire career he'd ever gone out with scouts to look at prospects. I mean, you talk about a guy who's been in the NFL for a long time, and first time in his career, he was like, okay, I'll get on that old yellow dog and ride the bus to go check out these prospects. And that to me showed like, all right, he knows that he's got to put in the work, put in the hours. Charlie F around can't just keep taking days off. You know what I mean?
Right. So we need to do more than just smash watermelons.
Exactly. You can be a rah coach, but you've got to be in the thick of things as well. And I think that, you talk about having a little bit more of a grasp on the offense. That's another great point that you brought up. And that's those types of things. Those types of things are showing up right now in his leadership, which is not something I really expected to say. Again, he's a raw coach. He's the kind of guy that players will like as a dude, but he's showing better leadership all throughout.
Agree. And we're definitely seeing the results of it on the field.
Yeah, and speaking of results on the field, I wanted to talk about Micah Parsons a little bit. Which, when do we not want to talk about Micah Parsons, right? I mean, that's probably the most enjoyable topic that you could possibly discuss in Cowboys Nation. But there's something happening to Micah Parsons and this defense right now that I think will both be better for the Dallas Cowboys and crush his chances at being Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of people have him early on as the Defensive Player of the Year. I think the stats, the numbers for Micah Parsons are going to be taking a step back because of all of the attention that he's getting, the double teams, the triple
teams. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, I really noticed, and I would like to know how many times it happened where they would come out in a formation, Washington, with two tight ends on one side, and then whichever side Micah Parsons lines up on, they just shift to that side. I mean, I don't know if that's a coincidence or maybe if I'm like, it happened like twice. And to me, I caught it both times. And suddenly it seems like it's happening 100 times in my mind. I don't know, but you certainly saw all the attention that they were giving Micah Parsons. So he didn't have the gaudy stats that he had the first couple of weeks, but everyone else did. But it unlocks the defense whenever you have Tank Lawrence going one-on-one virtually the entire game, and he's whooping the heck out of that right tackle. So that's kind of where I'm at with Micah Parsons. I wouldn't be stunned if you see the numbers take a little bit of a dip. And in turn, that's what it's all about. When you get to season awards, when you talk about Defensive Player of the Year, no one's going to say, well, he was double teamed and triple teamed a bunch. If you don't have the stats, if you don't have the sacks and the pressures and those types of things, they're not going to give it to you. But Dallas is better for it because guys like DeMarcus Lawrence are playing one-on-one. Guys like Osa are playing one-on-one. And so your defense as a whole, because of how complete and deep it is, suddenly the other teams are voluntarily giving you numbers to work with on the defensive front.
Right. Yeah. Anytime that you're freeing up, well, I mean, 2 or 3 guys sitting on Parsons, we've got some dogs out there. And, somebody we need to mention who really, really showed up this past game is Dante Fowler. And when you've got these kind of dogs out there and you have like one person on them, sometimes they may not have anybody because they're focusing on Micah. We're going to be disruptive.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, will teams continue to choose to take away the one game wrecker and allow everyone else to dismantle you? Or are you eventually going to look at it and go, okay, this isn't working. Okay, this is not – we're going to have to use some guys to double team DeMarcus Lawrence every now and then. We're going to have to send some other guys to help this. I mean, you look at the Rams coming up, and they're on their fourth string center, I think it is.
Yeah. That's and second, at least what, third string right guard, I believe. So
right.
Yeah. So Osa and those guys are going to have a great day.
Precisely. Are you going to leave? And remember, DeMarcus Lawrence has been playing quite a bit of three technique as well.
He has been.
So you line him up in a position to attack your backup right guard, and you're paying so much attention to Micah Parsons that, man, I really don't know if teams want to take that approach. But at the same time, they're just not willing to let one single guy completely dismantle everything in their offense.
Right.
Mm. But it's exciting because
It,
I would be willing to sacrifice, and this is me never getting an individual award in the NFL, of course, but I would be willing to sacrifice the individual award for that team. Look, 10 points. And it's funny because every game, the Cowboys have scored more points the next game. Whereas every game they've allowed less
less
points
points. Yeah.
every game.
I think we're on track for this next game to be at 7 points.
Hey, and you know what? By the time we get to the Eagles, it's going to be a 3-4 possession blowout.
Right.
That's the way this works, right? That's science.
Right.
That's how this entire thing works. So
yeah. You know, in this Cowboys defense, they've only allowed 1 touchdown each game this season. 1 each game.
that's pretty fantastic. And I saw something that the 2000s Ravens had given up 6 touchdowns at this point in their season. Not saying this is the 2000s Ravens. I'm not even saying this is the best defense in the NFL, but no one's scoring on them. Tampa Bay, I mean, they lost, but they put up a ton of points. You know, Tom Brady's still throwing for 350, but he didn't do it against Dallas.
Right.
Joe Burrow in Cincinnati getting back on track. They didn't do it against Dallas. So I'm very happy with the performance. And however, it's a catch-22 for offenses. You want to give all your attention to Micah Parsons, the impact is still going to be felt because other teams are going to destroy, or other players on this team are going to destroy you.
Yeah. And this morning on 105.3 The Fan, and I believe it was Bobby Belt, was talking about a conversation he had with Dan Quinn. And he asked him if this was that elite defense like the Legion of Boom and how soon he knows. And he told him that he usually knows about 12 weeks into the group being 10 to 12 weeks of a group being in. He said that he hasn't quite had that feeling yet, but they're close.
Yeah, and I got to wonder what part of him is kind of being held back. And is it you don't want to get too caught up in the moment? You don't want to buy into your own press. What was it? There was something said last week, false confidence. There was, again, Mike McCarthy had a message of don't get too hopped up on false confidence. So that goes right along with that message that, again, giving praise to the head coach that I never give any praise to. That message is being repeated now by your defensive coordinator. And this whole time, we've kind of looked at the defensive coordinator as the leader, as the guy that the players love and will play hard for. And now you've got your defensive coordinator echoing the head coach. And I think that that's a really good thing. So along with that, you know, we talk about Micah Parsons. There's a ton of guys on this defense that deserve praise and shout out.
Yeah. I mean, Deron
Bland.
Stepping in last moment when J-Lou went down in warmups, gets his first interception.
Hey, and not only that, but Deron Bland is a guy who is another. This was a traits draft. You know, this was a, you know, we're not really worried about what kind of guy you are necessarily. We're just worried about what you bring to the table. And Deron Bland, you know, I don't know his personality. I don't know, you know, how he acts or if, you know, he's a stand-up guy or whatnot. I'm sure he is. But they just love the long arms. You know, they love the length of this guy.
They have a prototype.
Absolutely they do. And that's going to be the talk of every draft until Dan Quinn is out of the building at some point or another. But, and at the end of the day, Deron Bland was ready. He was prepared. And that's a big deal. When you have down the depth chart guys who are prepared to step in any given moment, that is such a big deal.
And what do you think it says about that Deron Bland was on the 53 and playing and Nashawn Wright is still inactive? Another guy that was taken for his length, his height, everything.
Yeah,
Is it more the slot?
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the slot. And then, of course, they would know about J-Lou being banged up leading up to the game. And then, because Nashawn Wright's never going to play in the slot.
Well, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't know about J-Lou, though. J-Lou, it happened during warm-ups that morning or that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on the field warming up, it happened right then.
So
So
that's just going to be your option, the direction that you have to go. This guy plays slot, this guy doesn't. But it is interesting that I think it actually comes down to special teams between Kelvin Joseph and Nashawn Wright
oh
rather
yeah.
than Blank. Because once J. Lou gets hurt, I think that decision gets made for you. Whereas you have to look at Nashawn Wright versus Kelvin Joseph in a way that is other than, they don't ever want to take Diggs or Brown off the field. They
Right.
never want to take Diggs or Brown off the field.
Even though Mr. Brown didn't have a super great game, but we have appreciated everything so far.
He's been serviceable. He's not quite as good
Right.
as he was a season ago up to this point, but he's been good. I mean,
Right.
there's really not anything you could complain about. You'd have to pick. You'd have to nitpick.
Right.
Oh.
And our safeties this week once again did their job without Jaron Curse being on the field. I mean, fantastic. Who would have ever thought, and I probably said this last week, that we would have the depth in the safety room that we do and the talent? Because the Cowboys forever overlooked safeties, didn't value them in the right way.
Yeah, and I it's funny because I don't know if they value them all of a sudden or kind of lucked into some things, because you look at the resources that have been spent and it's still along the same lines of, here's a 6th-round pick, here's a 6th-round pick, here's a guy that's playing on a $2 million contract. We gave Jaron Curse a 2-year, $10 million. He's making $5 million a year, which is good, but he's not getting paid the kind of money that he's playing up to. And so I think that this front office just kind of got a little bit lucky with how Dan Quinn plays these guys, how well and how hard they're playing, because it's not like they were like, okay, we have to address this. We have to go out and get this guy and this guy. It's been working with 6th-round pick, and guys who signed for peanuts, and they've turned out to be really good.
Yeah, and honestly, besides Donovan Wilson, I'm going to give all this safety room credit and Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn found these, went out and found these guys. I believe Curse was an Edwards guy up in Minnesota, but you've got to think that Dan Quinn was like, okay, I understand you're not going to spend big money, but these are the guys I want, and I'm going after them and bringing them in.
Yeah, and that's also the Will McClay job. I feel for that guy, man, because he's got such a tough role with this team. Now, the good part is he's so beloved. He never gets any of the blame, but his role is essentially, you have this much, go find the guy that we can pay this much for. And if you're working and doing that job under Stephen Jones, that is a task, man.
Right.
That is a task.
I do not. I do not.
I know.
No, I wouldn't want that job.
You've got 20 grand. Go find me a Lamborghini. I mean, that's pretty much what they do with Will McClay. But man, at the end of the day, this entire secondary is playing at a really, really great level. And that includes Trayvon Diggs, of course.
Right. Oh, I guess he decides when the game's over.
Yeah.
Sorry, game's over. We're done. We're done here. We're gonna wrap this up.
It's not over until Trayvon Diggs sings.
Right.
I guess he's the fat lady's retiring, and Trayvon Diggs he's moved up into that role. All right. They went to him.
Even PFF is loving him.
Yeah, and
give him a 91.9 or whatever.
Yeah, and they gave him like a 97 grade on deep coverage on deep balls, which is, I think that they must have tweaked their algorithms, because he's still using trail technique. He's still giving that space and then closing it. I mean, that's exactly how he played it last year. But anyway,
and he's still McLaurin's daddy.
Look, Terry McLaurin just has the unfortunate truth of being the exact type of wide receiver that doesn't bother Trayvon Diggs at all.
Right.
I mean, the type of guy that he is, I mean, technician, all right, Diggs is right up there with you, only he's more athletic and he's longer. So he goes stride for stride with you and gives you a little room, and you think you got something there. And then suddenly he's right back in your hip pocket, taking the ball away from you. And, you know, these guys like a Terry McLaurin, these guys like that. Allen Robinson is of no concern to me coming up.
Well, if they don't use him either,
They don't.
I mean, they need to figure out that there's somebody else besides Cooper Kupp on the field, because they literally are just not utilizing anybody else.
They really don't.
No.
And I mean, and you got guys like Cam Akers who can catch the ball out of the backfield. Tyler Higbee gets a little bit of action. I mean,
yeah, he got a little bit last night, but
that's probably your second best pass catcher at this point in time.
Right.
But I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. Yeah. That, to me, it just seems like this Rams offense has become so one dimensional. You know, it's strange. It's strange. You know, I didn't think Sean McVay would go this direction with it. You know, we sat there and heralded how great he was and changing up things and everything up to this point in time, and they've just been flat this year.
I wonder how much of it is Sean McVay and how much of it is on Matt Stafford. Because look, his whole career has consisted of, hey, I've got a dude.
Right.
I'm going to throw to this guy, and I don't even have to like look another direction. You know, this is a guy who came up with Calvin Johnson, and now he's got Cooper Kupp. One dude is just, you can't miss him. You know, if you tried to throw a bowling ball into a golf hole, it's still going to go in because it's Megatron. The other guy is just always open, you know? So I wonder how much of it is how comfortable he is. You got to remember the offensive line, and they're not very good. And so are you just going to what you feel is absolutely going to be there, and suddenly Cooper Kupp has 11 catches for like 90 yards.
Right. And because last night there were 18 rushing attempts for 57 yards. Wasn't working.
Yeah, very mediocre in that front. So, and that's going to be interesting too, because Cooper Kupp is a very unique wide receiver, and Trayvon Diggs is not a guy who, I mean, he'll line up in the slot. Sometimes you kind of have to force him there, but I don't think that that's a thing they're going to do. I don't think they're going to want Trayvon Diggs lining up inside. This is where I think that I would love to have Jaron Kearse back for this game is if Jordan Lewis can't go, and I don't know that I love that matchup anyway, but I definitely do not want, for as grateful as I am in his debut, I don't want the best wide receiver matching up on a 5th-round rookie. Right. That just spells trouble. I mean, I'm glad Deron Bland got his takeaway, but he will get mixed up in the blender nonstop all night by this dude. And so Jaron Kearse, I know a lot of people are going to want him on Tyler Higbee, but we're not talking about one-on-one. We're not talking about manning up, okay? We're talking about help. We're talking about being over the top, linebackers underneath. If they are too uncomfortable to go anywhere else, then see what happens if you give this guy all of your attention. I would love to know how much of that involves Trayvon Diggs matching up with him, though. I mean, I want to see that a little bit one-on-one. The only thing is they don't really line him up outside consistently. And I agree, Massey. They've got to bracket him. They've got to go over and under on this guy. Here's where guys like LVE and Anthony Barr can help. I wonder if maybe this matchup could mean Jabril Cox's skill set could put him on the field a little bit more. I mean, I don't know how that knee is, but he's been playing special teams.
He
And
has.
for a team like the Rams, this might be a situation where Jabril Cox's cover skills are going to be needed with a guy like Cooper Kupp, with Tyler Higbee. It just kind of seems to match up right there. But Cam, let me tell you something that I'm really looking forward to, that I really hope happens.
Tell me.
There's a couple of guys. There's a guy on the Dallas Cowboys who is a wee little man. And we have had a great time watching Kevontae Turpin return punts, right? I don't know what kind of roles he has on special teams. I'm hoping that perhaps he's in on punt coverage or something like that. But I would love to see a little man scrum. I want to see Kevontae Turpin and Tutu Atwell get into it. I mean, I want to see them just that's what I want on the field. You don't know how badly I want this circus show to come to town, throw up the tent and let these little bitty dudes just battle it. No one even interfere. You know what I mean? Don't even get in the way. Don't even break it up.
They walk over and pick them up and separate them.
I laugh, but Turpin is a bigger guy than I am,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's
I'm 5'2". Who am I making fun of?
I know, but that would be just the absolute best thing to see Kevontae Turpin and Tutu Atwell just
Right.
I long for it. I long for it. I don't care. I want it.
Make it happen, please.
I just don't know when they'll ever be on the field at the same. Like,
Right.
I don't think there is ever a scenario where they're on the field at the same time. Maybe
Turpin goes out of bounds on the Rams side.
That. Yes, that. Or
something.
or like end of the game.
Right.
And the Rams need an onside kick. I bet both of those guys will be on the hands team.
Yeah.
bet
the end of the game, a fight starts. Aaron Donald picks up Tutu and throws him.
You're thinking like a Tristan Hill type situation from last year.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Man, how big is Tutu Atwell exactly?
Let me take a peek.
I got the depth chart right here.
I've got it. Yeah, so do I. Let me see. Tutu.
Turpin is what, 5'9", 155?
So Tutu is 5'9", 165.
Oh.
They're like a Big Mac apart.
I know, man. But look, if you're Kevontae Turpin, you cannot lose to a small guy named Tutu. Can't happen.
No, it can't. It can't. You can't.
All right. Okay. All right. So I had my fun. I told Cam I was like, we gotta see this.
Have to talk about it.
But seriously, getting back into this game, I don't know. The matchup is really interesting because you still have questions at left guard. I don't know how the rotation is going. I don't think McGovern played all that great. Granted, he went up against Jonathan Allen, but granted, you're about to go up against Aaron Donald.
I was about to say, you got Aaron Donald, and then, you've got Bobby Wagner there in linebacker that could be coming through. I think I honestly want to see a lot more Peters in that left guard position this week.
I do too. And I think that's been the plan, is to ramp him up and use games to get him into game shape. And so he played like 13 snaps 2 weeks ago against the Giants. I don't know his exact snap count, but
I haven't seen it yet.
I think it was close to doubled or somewhere in that range.
But we're talking, he's been with us 4 weeks now? 4 or 5 right now?
5 to 6 weeks.
I think we're getting close enough to get that number up there.
And that's a hefty boy, though. I mean, that's a big
Mm-hmm.
fella. If he needs the time to get in shape, I mean, that's not going to be like Anthony Barr, and you do it in
Right.
2 or 3 weeks, you know. So I was, you know, and this is something I was wrong about when he came in. I thought, okay, this is a dude who pretty much plug and played in Chicago. They signed him a little bit earlier, so he did get a little ramp up. But when the season started, he was in. He
Right.
was playing every snap. And so I don't know, but I would bet you see him a little bit more. Uh, though I want to see one play with Jason Peters at fullback. Everybody else gets their chance. Why not Jason Peters?
Right, right. They had what, McGovern? They had McGovern or Farniak back there quite a few times this last game.
I think McGovern,
Mhm.
Farniak, and Luke Gifford
Oh, that's right.
have all
Right.
played fullback at some point or another, which I
Sure.
don't. Yeah, whatever. I mean that I remember last year when we first saw it with McGovern, we were like, "Oh, big man package, oh, flex on him," and now we're like, "Dude, what do you? We don't. What is the point here? What are we accomplishing with this formation?" And so we've seen, you know, they're saying Ferguson was back
Yeah.
there a little bit as well. There you go.
Yeah, I do remember seeing Ferguson back there too.
Yeah, which that's actually more the norm.
Right.
Using a tight end as a fullback. I mean, we saw that for years and years as the Dallas Cowboys didn't carry a fullback. They'd motion Jason Witten back there, that sort of thing. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
Let's talk about Schultz, or the lack of anything out of Schultz. Is that more because of this defensive line and the scheme that was being played, or was he just such a non-factor?
You know, I gotta wonder how much confidence he had in his knee, because he didn't really look all that comfortable after the fact. So I don't think he didn't really get targeted a whole heck of a lot. But when he did, and things didn't end up, you know, I think he had a drop. He had some where he was just covered up. I mean, he wasn't. One thing that Dalton Schultz does well at is getting open. I mean, he can get open. And
Well,
I
he
didn't see that. It seemed like there was constantly someone on his hip anytime a ball went his way. And I'm just not entirely sure how confident he is in cuts in and out, breaks, those types of things right now.
Yeah, I know he was definitely. I don't know if it wasn't he was open or he was a decoy, and when he ran down the seam, and that actually opened up CD to catch that touchdown. Just it, but then versus what we saw the week before, we saw a lot more action with Hendershot and Ferguson that I just don't know, and we didn't see a ton out of them either. That it was just this game or what's going on.
Yeah, I think that they do a pretty good job of not only playing their brand of football, and I hate saying that because people automatically default to cowboy football, you know, the old adage from a year ago. But they do a pretty good job of, okay, here's what we do. This is just how we play, but also here's where we can take advantage. Here's what we should implement versus this opponent because of what they do or lack of what they do. And I'm not sure that the tight end game played in to that because you needed help holding up against a very good defensive line. Uh, Having those tight ends result in your tackle being able to crash down and help the guard with the three technique or something of that sort. So it's really tough when it comes to these teams with dominant defensive tackles, and we're going to see it again. I think that the pass rush for the Rams could give Dallas a little bit of an issue, partially because of that, but also these guys that they have on the edges, like a Leonard Floyd, can, you know, and they got, I don't know how much you really care about Tack McKinley. I don't even know what he's done, but he was a draft darling once upon a time. Uh, I mean, if anyone should know how to handle him, it should be Dan Quinn. You know, not that you're going to have to really handle him like Tack McKinley's a problem, but I think they have a little better pass rush on the edges right now than what Washington had, while also having the best defensive tackle in the NFL and one of the top 2 defensive players. So that's an issue, but luckily this offensive line has been a lot better than we initially anticipated it being. So with that, though, Camber, you know who I really haven't heard anything about this season? And I don't know if it's just me, but Jalen Ramsey seems to be having a quiet year.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 1 interception, which, that's great and everything. And I'm sure he's defending well. And here's the thing. When defensive backs are having a quiet year, that generally means they're playing well.
Right. Right.
Quarterbacks are moving off of them. They're not even testing them. Or the coverage is so good that you can't make a throw that even makes sense that direction. So you kind of just get it out of the way. I'm curious, without having seen every Rams game this year, I'm curious how well he's playing, considering the previous 4 games for him were not very pretty in the playoffs last season.
Not at all. Not at all. No, but I think you are spot on. When we aren't hearing about them, 1 or 2 things is happening. They're playing well and doing their job, or like you said, they're just not being thrown to. That they're targeting the other guys.
I mean, here he's got 1 interception, 5 pass breakups. He's playing well. I'm just not. I don't know what to make of it, because it was such, very uncharacteristic of Jalen Ramsey a season ago. And now that matchup with him and CeeDee Lamb, which I assume they're going to try to put their best guy on our best guy. And you know what? If we've got a double, if we've got a bracket, if we've got to put someone over the top or underneath, then we can do that with a Michael Gallup, or we can do that against Noah Brown or Dalton Schultz or whatever, and then kind of leave CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Ramsey one-on-one. So
and then David Long is actually hurt and he's questionable at this point in time. So if Jalen's got CD wrapped up, then that puts Grant Haley on Gallup, and give me that all day long.
Right. I mean, they've got decent safeties.
Right.
I think they've got pretty decent
Fuller,
safeties.
Yeah, Fuller and Scott. Taylor Rapp, my Husky. Taylor Rapp's in there.
Taylor Rapp, yeah. And Taylor Rapp is a depth guy that you're in pretty good shape when Taylor Rapp is a depth guy.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this defense, and Bobby Wagner, that was a guy that we kind of were hopeful with the Dallas Cowboys in the offseason. I'm really, really curious as to this Rams team, when they've played the top competition, when they've played the plus teams, they haven't looked competitive. At all.
No.
Whenever they played the Falcons, who was the other team they beat? It wasn't. It was kind of a ho hum, middle of the pack. I don't remember exactly. I know one of them was the Falcons, and they won that. That was a 3-point game, I think. It was a 4-point game, and then the Cardinals.
Oh, the Cardinals
Beat the Cardinals 20-12. So they've scored 10.
That was a divisional game for them.
Right. They've scored 10, 31, 20, and 9. So something is not going right with their offense.
Right.
Which I'm
because they're utilizing one weapon. They are so one-dimensional right now. They're not, there's no run game. As we said earlier, Allen Robinson is non-factor in any of this. It's pretty much the Cooper Kupp show.
And I wonder why that is, because Allen Robinson And I could have sworn with his entire career being with, let's see, who was it? Blake Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
And he played with Mitch Trubisky in Chicago and put up numbers. I really thought that you make him the second pass catcher next to Cooper Kupp with a quality quarterback like Matt Stafford, and then a decent run game, with Henderson and with Cam Akers. And I really thought this was going to open this guy up, kind of unlock him. I wonder how much of it has to do with Matt Stafford's obsession with Cooper Kupp and how much of it has to do with your offensive line's not holding up. Your offensive line's not giving a guy like Allen Robinson a chance to excel.
Right.
So, I mean, that could go either way. It's someone you still have to look out for, even if he's not putting up numbers at this point in time. It's almost, we talked about people were calling the Washington game a little bit of a trap game. It's got some trap feel to it. The sneaking suspicion of Allen Robinson being in a disappearing act, being an irrelevant player to the Rams up to this point, he's going to rear his head up at some point, or I think he would.
You would think.
You would think.
You would think, but if Stafford's not looking his way and not throwing to him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I
don't know.
We saw games where Robert Woods has gone off. We saw games where Van Jefferson, before he got hurt, went off.
Right.
Odell Beckham had a lot of success in LA with them. I mean, scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Right.
So they utilized that guy, but Andrew Whitworth retires. You're on center number 3 or 4. You're on, you're down the depth chart guard, and then your tackles aren't very good at all. I think that this might be a case of Matt Stafford just brain defaulting to a safe space, and that safe space is named Cooper Kupp.
Right. And how many times did San Francisco get to Stafford?
They had a pretty ungodly amount of.
It was like 14 or 16 quarterback hits, and
yeah, they got a bunch of hits in on him.
Yeah,
I thought it was 14. Yeah, 14, 16, which is a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of. That's not only a lot to get knocked down, but you're playing on Monday night, so you're going to have a short week after that.
Right.
I mean, you don't have a lot of time for the bumps and the bruises to heal because you got to go out there and now, San Francisco. It's one of the best defenses in the NFL, but so is Dallas.
I was going to say we're pretty comparable.
We are right up there with them. Yeah. And, I'm again going back to what we were talking about with Dan Quinn and not necessarily, bathing in the anointing oil of how great this defense is right now. But man, our eyes aren't fooling us. We see what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty good. And I would like to have a 5-sack day on Matt Stafford.
I honestly think we can. I had one of my friends last night that I was talking to. He's like, well, they've got Bosa. And I was like, we have Micah. It's I'd easily put us in the top 3 defenses in the league right now.
Sure.
Without hesitation. But no, hey, us getting 5-6 sacks, I don't even foresee a problem with it whatsoever.
And, there was a point in time last year before the Rams went on their playoff run. Matt Stafford was giving the ball away a lot. He was throwing a lot of interceptions and turning the ball over at a really high frequency. And I got to wonder if at some point, teams take away Cooper Kupp or force him into shorter and shorter and shorter routes. I mean, he averaged like 9 yards a catch yesterday, which when you have 15 catches, that's, great, fantastic, whatever. But, if you're not going any other direction, then you're going to lose. You're not going to put up points. And that's been evident. I mean, we just read off their point totals for the season, and they have one legitimately good offensive game this year. Everything else has been 20 points, 9 points. What was that in the opener? 10 points. They're still trying to find themselves, and I don't think that the Dallas Cowboys and Dan Quinn's defense is the right time to find it.
Right. No, completely agree. And and especially when, I mean, if they have no run game whatsoever, and kudos to Mass for putting this up in a tweet, our passing game, we can talk about our run defense. That is our weakness. We are having a little issue with our run defense. But when in passing, week 1, 195 yards, week 2, 165, week 3, 169, and week 4, 155. We're only giving up 171 yards. And the Rams seem like they want Cooper Kupp to catch all of those. So if they're not going, it's clear that our run defense is the weakness of this defense right now. And if they don't have a run game that they've established and that's going, I'm not seeing where this score is going to be very good for them.
Yeah, and I think San Francisco is a game where they needed to show something.
Oh, yeah.
Because prior to last night, I think a lot of us here in Cowboys Nation, we were kind of like, man, this is going to be a tough one. Cooper Rush, this is going to be a real proving moment against
it's a divisional game for them.
Right. Well, I'm talking about Cowboys versus Rams.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just kind of the chatter. That game turned the entire attitude of this fan base around in a matter of 3 hours. Everybody was worried about the Rams, and we should be. You don't take an opponent lightly, especially when they're coming off a Super Bowl victory.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, the Rams are not playing good. They're putting everything on their defense, and even the Dallas Cowboys, when they were short a wide receiver, when they were short offensive linemen, when they were down to their backup quarterback, they were still doing things, establishing drives, taking time off the clock, doing things that would help their defense. And I don't think the Rams are doing that right now. They're turning the ball over. I mean, we had someone Robert mentioned 6 interceptions for Matt Stafford already. So this is not a team that's firing on all cylinders, and it's a good time to catch them.
Agree. And also good for us that we can get this win, that we'd be able to get this win against them and maybe take that momentum in against the Eagles. Because we all know that's going to be that's the game that I think I've been more afraid of than anything.
Yeah, and the Eagles are going to present its own group of challenges. I mean, you talk about struggling against the run game. They're a really great run team. So that's going to be interesting. And you're not going to get a sense of whether or not you stack up well in that game, because I don't expect the Rams to rely on their run game. The teams that do against the Dallas Cowboys would be the smartest teams. The ones who do commit to the run. Oh, our MVP of the team is a wide receiver. Tough. Find some ways to hand him the ball.
Right.
if you really, this is a team that has really struggled against the run. They still are struggling against the run. They're doing it a lot quieter, but they're still struggling against the run. And it'll be interesting to see if the Rams are willing, if Sean McVay is willing to look at the Dallas Cowboys defense and say, you know what, this is how we're going to avoid the pass rush. Not with a tight end to double team, not with tackle and guard double teaming Micah Parsons and leaving everyone else vulnerable. No, we're going to eliminate their pass rush by committing to the run game. And I think the teams that do that, I don't want them to do that, because I think that's the recipe to beat the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep. Exactly. Now, I do think that we need to establish the run against this team. And if we're going to establish the run, Kellen Moore, if you run that ball straight up the middle time after time again, I'm going to lose it on you.
Yeah, not the
We've
team
got
to.
to attack the outsides. We've got to attack the edges on this run game, because all you're going to see is Aaron Donald and Bobby Wagner and Leonard Floyd up there in the middle, and we've got to stop it.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, Aaron Donald is the most well-rounded defensive lineman that the league has seen in a very, very long time. He's just as good against the run as he is against the pass. So you got to do it in order to, manipulate the defense, get what you want out of them. Okay, they're going to run the ball up the middle. Maybe we bring those defensive ends from a 6 to a 5 technique, or maybe you line them up a little bit tighter in a 4 or something of that nature. I don't know. But at the end of the day, what they really need to do is not show their hand by what personnel is on the field. All right. It can't just 100% of the time be Pollard outside, Zeke up the middle. Who's in the game? Zeke. All right. Well, here's what's coming. You also, I'm confident that Kellen Moore can count, and I'm confident that Cooper Rush can count. So when you're counting 8 men in the box, don't run into that box.
Right.
Quick out.
Yeah.
Anything. Just find a way. I thought they did that entirely too much against Washington. Now, kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Sometimes you do it just to get what you want in the fourth quarter. In the second and third, you run into that box so that when you give the same look in the fourth quarter, maybe you can manipulate them a little bit, but I don't love it. But I really, really think that Tony Pollard can be a key to this game for that reason. So, Camber, let's give an X factor. We're going to give an X factor, all right? Give me a guy on offense and a guy on defense that makes a difference in this game for the Dallas Cowboys, and then give me a score.
Okay. Offense. I'm going to go with we're so glad you're back, Michael Gallup. I think, I like we discussed earlier, I think that CD is going to be very engaged with Ramsey, and a lot of the focus is going to be there. And I think that Michael Gallup, we saw he's back. He's back. And I think he's the guy on offense that's going to make a huge difference this week.
Yeah, and I think he had one. I think it was just a dig route, a pretty deep dig on a third down. I think it was 3rd and 13 or something like that, and that's where he caught his first ball, I want to say. And outside of that, we didn't really take any shots downfield with Michael Gallup. It was to Noah Brown. Obviously, you had some deep balls to CeeDee Lamb, who, by the way, suddenly is up in the top of the league in receptions of 15 yards or more, which I didn't see coming. I mean, that really snuck up on us. But what about on the defensive side of the ball?
So on the defensive side of the ball, it's so hard not to know that they're on their force center. And it's so hard not to say Osa Odigizua.
Hey,
he's just Osa. It's going to be Osa. I mean, he's, and I tried to make that point last week. In fact, we were in a space after Freestyle Friday. And no, it might have been during Freestyle Friday. And I asked that crew that we had in there from Washington if they were worried about having the center that they did. Someone who has bounced around from team to team, practice squad, never, really was anything. And they were like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Was it fine? Was it fine? I think not. And I think the same kind of thing's going to go on. So I'm going Osa Digizua.
I'll tell you, any Dallas Cowboy fan who gets told by someone else, oh, that third center, that's not a big deal.
No big
After
deal.
what we've been through,
Yeah.
after what has transpired from the retirement of Travis Frederick. Now, granted, we all love Joe Looney. We appreciate his services here.
Right.
He was a solid fella. And
Where is he? I miss him in his jammies running around in the commercials like we had last year.
I
We
know.
need more Looney in our life.
We do need more Looney in our life. I love that. That's a t-shirt.
It is.
I know. I wish he was playing. But
well, even just what he did with the team last year with PR and things like that. We need that. We just need Looney.
I'm with you. I totally agree. Score.
Okay. So, because Cooper Kupp is a factor. And yes, I was off a little bit on our side of my prediction last week. I wasn't off that far on the Washington side. So I'm actually going to go 24-13 Cowboys. He did. That was last year. And then he came to us.
I know, but that is just hilarious.
I know. It's such a Looney thing to do. I love it.
Yeah, just show up, do one practice, and be like,
nah, I'm good.
Dallas better.
I'll go dance in pajamas for the Cowboys in their ads.
No.
Then I'll stay on your team.
20. So, what was your score?
24-13.
24-13. That's not bad. Do the Cowboys continue their point ascension? So
that wouldn't be the point ascent. It would not. And the reason being that I didn't give it to them, and I guess I could say Cooper Kupp catches, but then they've got their kicker's really good. Matt Gay is a really good kicker too, even though he did flub up one extra point last night. But that happens. So I really wanted the ascension to keep continuing, but you've got Cooper Kupp on the field. And like you said, Stafford thinks he's his dude. Kind of hard. So he gets at least one touchdown. So maybe I am being generous. Maybe I am. Maybe it's 10. Maybe it's 24-10. So I don't know.
I'm down for that.
Yeah.
All right. Offensive X factor. One of these rookie tight ends is going to catch their first touchdown.
Nice.
One of these rookie tight ends, I just got to pick the right one.
Massey is cheering right now at his desk. He's cheering. I am
going to go because I love the way he can go upstairs for a ball. Jake Ferguson gets his first career touchdown against the LA Rams, and the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this game. And I'll give you a defensive guy here in a second. But okay. I got the Dallas Cowboys winning 27-18.
Okay.
27-18, which 18 is kind of a weird, wonky score.
Right.
It is. But they're going to get there. I don't know how, but they're going to get there. All right.
All right. Is it a scoregami?
I mean, maybe Matt Gay has a career day. You know, maybe it's six field goals. Yeah. But they're going to get there. Or a missed extra point.
Right.
In there, you know.
Yeah. There you go. And four field goals.
Yeah. All right. Defensively, I really liked your pick. I am going to have to go. Let's go with Dante Fowler.
Nice. He was my other pick.
Yeah.
That was my other pick.
And, we'll talk about how teams are going to commit to not letting Micah Parsons be the one to wreck your day. That gives someone else a chance to wreck your day. Right. And I think that Dante Fowler could come away with 2 sacks in this game.
Nice. I love it. Absolutely love it.
There you go. All right. Camber, let's wrap it up. You guys like and subscribe, Pick Six Sports. We do this every Tuesday. And then Camber and Massey going to be back here on Thursday doing the exact same thing, talking Dallas Cowboys football as the Cowboys get ready for the Rams. 3 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. But you guys be tuned in, like and subscribe. Friday freestyle shows as well. It is a good old time here at Pick Six Sports. See you later, everybody. Have a great day.